We'd never worked together. And he was in a mood at that time. He says, I don't want to do any more violent pictures. I'm tired of it.
Clint Eastwood is a man who can handle 75 movies, 4 Oscars, and directing a film faster than most people boil eggs, but he cannot, under any circumstances, handle your nonsense. If you show up late, ask for a 7th take, or tweet something stupid, you're dead to him. And yes, Hollywood's quietest hitman keeps receipts. So today, we're diving into the 5 people who crossed him and never got a second chance. At number 5, we're talking about Michael Moore. And yes, some people might be surprised by this one. After all, Moore is a filmmaker just like Clint Eastwood. You'd think there'd be some mutual respect there. But Clint isn't exactly handing out friendship bracelets in Hollywood. And when Moore crossed the line, he didn't just get a cold shoulder, he got a one-liner that still echoes years later. In front of a room full of Hollywood elites at the National Board of Review Awards, Clint said calmly, "If he ever shows up at my front door with a camera, I'll kill him." There was no laugh track, no follow-up smirk, just Eastwood, delivering the kind of threat only Clint Eastwood could deliver, and meaning every word of it. This feud didn't come out of nowhere. Moore had recently released Fahrenheit 9/11, a documentary that slammed the Bush administration and stirred massive political debate. It was loud, dramatic, and tailor-made for controversy. It also did exactly what Moore wanted. It got him awards, attention, and a spot in the middle of every political argument of that year. But Clint? He didn't see it as brave. He saw it as manipulative. To him, Moore wasn't exposing anything. He was exploiting real trauma. The attacks of September 11th weren't just a headline to Clint. They were part of the painful American reality he had spent decades trying to explore with honesty in his films. At that point, Eastwood had just finished $1 Million Baby. It went a quiet, brutal story of personal loss and sacrifice. He was working on Flags of Our Fathers, on a film rooted in the quiet heroism of World War II veterans. His approach to pain and patriotism was subtle, personal, and sincere. So when Moore came in hot with what Clint saw as a politically packaged guilt trip, it was more than a difference in style. It felt like a personal insult. For Clint, Moore had turned real-life tragedy into a product. After that public comment, Clint never brought up Moore's name again. There was no press war, no back and forth, no awkward reunion at an awards show. Clint didn't block him or go on a rant. He just erased him. Now at number 4, we got Seth Rogen. And no, Clint Eastwood didn't blacklist him over a bad joke in a movie. He did it over a tweet that hit where it hurt the most. The year was 2014, and Eastwood had just released American Sniper, a war biopic based on the life of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. The film wasn't just a success, and it was a phenomenon. It grossed over $540 million worldwide, became the highest-grossing war movie of all time, and stirred up a national debate around war, patriotism, and American identity. To Eastwood, this was more than a film. It was a personal tribute to military service crafted with restraint and purpose. But just days after the film's release, Rogen fired off a tweet that read, "American Sniper kind of reminds me of the movie that's showing in the 3rd act of Inglourious Bastards." That movie, of course, was a fictional Nazi propaganda film glorifying a sniper who guns down Allied soldiers while the audience cheers. The comparison wasn't subtle, and Clint Eastwood did not take it lightly. Insiders say Eastwood was livid. He didn't respond publicly, he never does, but behind closed doors, the mood shifted fast. According to a longtime Warner Bros. Associate who worked with Clint during post-release press, Eastwood immediately flagged Rogen's name. Not for debate, for removal. He wasn't interested in apologies or explanations. From Clint's perspective, the damage was done. Comparing his tribute to fallen soldiers to Nazi propaganda wasn't satire. It was disrespectful, plain and simple. Especially considering that American Sniper was based on the autobiography of Chris Kyle, a real Navy SEAL who served 4 tours in Iraq and was credited with over 160 confirmed kills. For Eastwood, the film wasn't a glorification of war, it was a reflection of the mental toll and the complex morality behind it. Rogen's tweet reduced all of that to a punchline. Rogen did backpedal hard. In an interview with the Associated Press on January 21, 2015, he claimed the tweet was misunderstood. He said, "I just said something glib on Twitter. I didn't mean to accuse the movie of being Nazi propaganda." But Eastwood wasn't buying it, and that's all it took. Rogen, who had never worked with Clint before, ensured with that single tweet that he never would. His name was quietly blacklisted from any project associated with Eastwood's circle. According to casting insiders, Clint made it clear, If Rogen's name came up in casting discussions, it needed to disappear immediately. And this list gets fiery with the third name on it, and it might be your favorite. Leonardo DiCaprio, the Oscar-winning method powerhouse, found himself quietly iced out by Clint Eastwood after what was supposed to be a career-defining collaboration. The year was 2011, and J. Edgar was in production, a heavyweight biopic about FBI founder J. Edgar Hoover, directed by Eastwood and headlined by DiCaprio. On paper, it looked like the perfect storm of talent, but behind the camera, the set quickly turned into a silent battlefield between two wildly different approaches to filmmaking. Clint liked to move fast, trust instinct, and stick to a maximum of 2 takes. DiCaprio arrived with binders, emotional theory, and the expectation of at least 5 to 6 takes per scene. During one particularly heavy emotional sequence, a scene meant to showcase Hoover's private breakdown, DiCaprio delivered his first take. According to a key grip on set, it was solid, even gripping. But DiCaprio wasn't done. He wanted to try again. And again. By the time he asked for the 6th take, Clint didn't say a word. He just stood up, left the monitor, and headed to the craft service table for coffee. That moment wasn't a tantrum. It was a silent warning. One that didn't need to be spoken aloud because everyone on set understood it. Clint wasn't interested in exploring emotional variations or rehearsing a breakdown from 5 different angles. He'd already moved on, DiCaprio hadn't, and that disconnect would quietly kill any chance of them working together again. After the film wrapped, Clint made a comment to a producer that became a quiet summary of how he saw the experience. He said, "Some people want to analyze the mountain. I just want to get to the top and enjoy the view." No name mentioned, but no doubt about who he meant. Despite the film's promotional rounds and award buzz, Clint never cast DiCaprio again. In fact, according to a casting assistant who worked on Sully and the Mule, Leo's name was never brought up, not even for consideration. When asked why, Clint reportedly replied, "Great actor. Not for me." At number 2, the hate was for a name that came with equal weight as Gene Hackman. 2 icons, 2 Oscar-winning heavyweights, 1 unforgettable film, but behind Unforgiven's critical acclaim and golden statues was a set split down the middle where tension didn't explode. It simmered. The year was 1992. Clint Eastwood was directing, producing, and starring in what would become one of the most celebrated westerns of all time. Gene Hackman was cast as Little Bill Daggett, the film's brutal, complex antagonist. From the outside, it looked like a dream pairing. Inside, it was a slow, quiet war between 2 men who weren't wired to compromise. Hackman, already known in the industry for being intense and stubborn, arrived with his own playbook. He interrupted Clint mid-instruction to question the scene's logic. According to a script supervisor on the film, it was a constant disruption. Clint ran one of the calmest, most efficient sets in Hollywood. His style was quiet authority, not open debate. But Hackman didn't adapt, he challenged, and during one key shoot, that clash hit its peak. Hackman took issue with a line in the script. In front of the crew, he said, "That line doesn't work. I'm not saying it." Clint didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain. He simply looked at him and said, "You will." That was it. The energy on set after that moment never recovered. There were no arguments in front of the crew, but there was no camaraderie either. Hackman stayed in his space, Clint in his. According to a lighting tech who worked both units, the 2 men barely spoke outside of takes. After the film cleaned up at the Oscars, Best Picture, Best Director for Clint, Best Supporting Actor for Hackman, you'd expect a celebration of the whole team. Instead, Clint publicly praised Morgan Freeman and Richard Harris in interviews. Hackman's name barely surfaced. For someone like Clint Eastwood, silence is never empty. It's deliberate. And when it comes to Gene Hackman, that silence has lasted over 3 decades. And the first one on the list, I can't name anyone but Barbra Streisand. The feud here didn't need a shouting match or a disastrous set meltdown. It was built on silence, rewrites, and a battle for control that happened almost entirely without them ever sharing a scene. They never worked together, not once, and yet the tension between these 2 was so strong that it still echoes across every interview, every project, and every passive-aggressive comment they've dropped in each other's direction. It all traces back to one film, The Bridges of Madison County. Streisand was originally attached to direct and potentially star in the adaptation of Robert James Waller's best-selling novel. She had a script, a vision, and her name quietly locked to the project at Warner Brothers, But when delays mounted and the studio grew anxious about her famously perfectionist style, they handed the film to Clint Eastwood instead. He didn't just step in, he tore the entire thing apart. According to a screenwriter who worked on the project, Clint took Streisand's expansive, emotionally overcooked version and stripped it down to the core love story. What made it personal wasn't just the takeover, it was what Clint thought about her style. According to a producer who worked with Eastwood during the shoot, Clint made a comment that summed it all up. At some point, you're not finding the truth, you're manufacturing it. He was talking about her tendency to do 40 to 50 takes for a single walk across the screen. Clint believed in the first take, in the raw emotion of instinct. To him, Streisand represented everything he couldn't stand: obsessive control, unnecessary polish, and the kind of filmmaking that chokes the life out of a scene. When The Bridges of Madison County went on to earn 6 Academy Award nominations and nearly $200 million worldwide, insiders close to Clint described the moment as his quiet, clean win by execution. Streisand didn't keep quiet either. In later interviews, she shaded Clint's work as too minimalist, too emotionally flat, too fast. She never named him directly, but the digs weren't subtle. Clint, as usual, never responded. He didn't have to. Clint Eastwood never needed fists or foul words to end a feud, just quiet, final actions. So, for more behind-the-scenes grudges and Hollywood heat, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Which feud do you think lit Clint's slow-burning fuse the most?